That's a different perception of progress. You are getting farther away from God. That's a deceptive perception of progress. How could we be progressing and we're getting farther and farther away from God? Don't you understand that's a lie? When you begin to experience true progress, we will be getting closer and closer to our Maker. And you wonder, two perceptions. Two perceptions. I just don't see how we could accept a progress based upon us getting farther and farther away from our Maker. Brothers and sisters, we've got to come to terms. Something is wrong. Something is wrong. See, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm simply trying to make you think. There is no practical way out of this dilemma that we're in except that we are able to invoke God into our struggle on our side. There is no practical way to win. The only reason that the African American has not achieved his freedom is because you have failed to convince God that your freedom would be in his best interest. Free you to do what? You would just build another Washington, another Chicago, Detroit. What God is going to free you to replicate this? Say it again. You've got to understand. If you want God to help you, don't you know if you want God at the head of the ticket, we've got to have a platform that he can support. Would you take Clinton a platform and ask him to be at the head of the ticket that he couldn't support? Well, let's go a step higher with the Creator. Your leaders, you lay out a platform. If you want God at the head of the ticket, you've got to consider what kind of platform should we lay out? Now, simple question. Let us consider the platform. How many of you would like for God to be at the head of the ticket? Could I see your hands, please? All of you want God to be at the head of the ticket. Now, how does this go? Now, we've got to lay out a platform. Now, we want to present it to God. You following me? So now we've got to consider the platform. Now we know, we all agree that we want him at the head of the ticket. Now, okay, in the area of dress, we laying it out. Dress. Okay. What should we put down that the people can wear? Anything. Anything. So you got to consider now, because we've been taking a platform that continuously getting rejected. Now, we're going to just put down for dress. We're going to just put down, Lord, we decided on your platform that people can wear anything.
Wrong God.
Say it again.
Wrong God.
Not going to get that endorsement. We fixing to get the platform rejected. Now, we'll go a step further. Diet. Sheep came down in the 12th chapter of Exodus with all 12th chapter of Acts, all manner of animals. So, Lord, dietary-wise, what we're going to recommend to the people is that you can eat anything. Wait a minute. Now we say you can eat anything. You can wear anything. Something wrong with that platform. Say it again. Let's take a step further, because those areas may be a little sensitive. Let's go back to this area of the devil. Drawing up the platform. Freedom of worship. Okay. What about worship of the devil, Lord? We're going to allow the worship of the devil. We want you to support it.
Definitely the wrong God.
Wait a minute now. Wait a minute. Do you feel that God is going to endorse a platform and you're going to give the devil freedom to express himself?
No.
You're going to allow the people the freedom to worship the devil. Do you feel that God is going to run at the head of that platform?
Absolutely not.
You got to come to terms, brothers and sisters. You've got to understand what I'm saying to you. You see, the Bible and God is no longer real to you because you really believe. Somebody has told you that just believe you can wear anything, you can eat anything, you can worship. You really believe that because God no longer has form to you. And I'm simply saying you've got to come to terms with the fact that that's a lie. God has a position. He has a preference. And if you do not know it or understand it, it does not negate the fact that it is still in existence. God has a position. And that's why I had to sanctify. Because the God that I'm talking about, you can't just wear anything. He said for glory and for beauty. For the glory of God and for beauty. But beauty was determined by the glory, to dress for the glory of God. Not for Hart, Schaffner, and Marx, not for money, not for style, but to be certain that you dress for the glory and beauty of God. Now, you've got to come to terms. You've got to come to terms. You made a bad deal. You made a bad deal. My sister here, would you invest in something that was not in your best interest? See, and you would not invest in something that was not in your best interest. That makes sense, doesn't it? My brother here, would you invest in something that was not in your best interest? Wouldn't make sense. And all we're talking about here is some paper. But you put that kind of value on that paper, my hard-earned. Now, if we take it a step higher, don't you feel that God is a little more intelligent in his investment plan than we are, than you? Do you feel that God would invest in something that was not in his best interest? No. Would you expect God to invest in something you wouldn't, but something that was not in his best interest? Wouldn't make sense. You would not invest in something that is not in your best interest, but somebody has told you that God will just invest in anything. Listen to it. You won't put that paper with dead presidents on it into anything. But God will just invest in anything. Can't you understand? If you want God to invest in our freedom struggle, we've got to convince him that our freedom struggle is in his best interest. Doesn't that make sense? No people, no man can keep a people in captivity that desire to be free to return unto God. No people, no army can keep a people in captivity that desire to be free to return unto God. So then you have to come to terms. Your platform continues to be rejected. There are some problems. You've got to come to terms, but you've been deceived. We as a people, you're walking contrary to the Creator. They have lied to us and given us the impression that God will just accept anything, anyway, eat anything, wear anything, worship anything. It don't matter. It does matter. We've got to give the worship of God form, definition. Do you know, again, that if you don't know what is right, how do you know what is wrong? You tell me. If you don't know what is right, do you know what is wrong? You know what determines what is wrong, what is right. When you look into the mirror and you see order, at the same time that you see order, you also see what? Disorder. Because disorder is determined by order. And if you don't know order, you don't know disorder. You've got to come to terms. Deception running rampant. History and destiny. A people without the knowledge of their history are likened unto a tree without roots. Do you know a tree without roots is what? Dead. Said a nation without the knowledge of its history is like a tree without roots. They are in fact dead. It does not matter brothers and sisters, how strong the branches may be, but the root provides the nourishment to the branches. Why is it, out of all of the people in the Americas, the fact that you have no history beyond your arrival on these shores? When you go back beyond the 400 years, you simply become an African. Africa is a continent. Why is it that there is so much mystery shrouding our history? Why is it that no one seems to know who we are? And then they covertly teach us in the institutions, without a subject being called by the name, they covertly teach us not to show any interest in our history. Why? Because this is the best thing that ever happened to us. You don't want to know about your history because covertly they've given you the impression it was just a history of savagery and savages. So subsequently, you have no great interest in your historical background. History. Who are we? Are we North Africans, South Africans, East Africans, West Africans? Who are we? Why the mystery surrounding our history? If I may ask,
reading from the Washington Post, Tuesday, November 19th, 1996.
just a couple of lines. I'll stop you. Please continue.
An international team of fossil hunters unearthed a 2.33 million year old jawbone.
They unearthed a 2.33 million year old jawbone.
From an early human ancestor.
From an early human. They could determine a human ancestor. Continue on.
That provides new evidence that early hominids used tools, the researchers reported yesterday.
And they could determine by this jaw, not his hands, that they used the kind of tools that they used 2.33 million years ago. Now I've got 400 consecutive years of history and nobody knows who I am, but they can tell who this is. That's a lie. I mean, certainly, with all of the persecution in this country, certainly they've got enough jawbones or foot bones or hand bones or something. Nobody, they can even take the scraping off of a tooth. He ate for, but I have continuous history. I am. I mean, certainly they can scrape a little something off one of our jawbones. They just discovered a graveyard in New York a few years back. Certainly they could have did some scraping to determine, well, at least, North Africa. They have different facial features in South Africa and East Africa and West Africa. But here we are. Nobody knows who we are. What is it about our history that has caused this great mystery? Who are we? But you and I, and then deception, cause you to not really want to find out about your history because you have covertly been given the impression that nothing back there. I recall when I was a child, again, and no one had taught me that subject about hate Africa, but I grew up, I ain't got nothing to do with Africa. Don't tell me nothing about Africa. They were cannibals and they ate each other. Nobody, but some way in this system. So then I had no interest in a revelation about my history. Now, something about our history. All of you have received the sheets, I pray. No, those are your personal sheets. You may take them home and to peruse them. What I would like to do is to take one of the definitions. We're in the classroom this evening, and we are trying to help you get your master's degree.
New master's degree, right?
A new master's degree. So now we're talking about history and destiny. History. We're going to find out why. All of the mystery about your history. I mean, you're a different people. You've got to understand, brothers and sisters, if you would just consider the slave trade. In the 15th century, all of the brothers and sisters that have studied West Africa and East Africa, in the 15th and 16th century, we had great institutions. I mean, we had great educational institutions in West Africa. I mean, we had great educational institutions in East Africa. But all of a sudden now, let me put this into perspective. The Europeans sailed ships. Ships at that time, what could they hold? Maybe 300 people. They sailed 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 miles. They got to dock the ship maybe a mile out at sea and then get in rowboats. 15 or 20 in rowboats. Coming into our territory, on our turf. We had institutions, we had armies, we had weapons, we had government. And they come ashore on our turf, and not for 1 week, but for more than 150 years, they continue to come back and just load us up and take us into Europe and the Americas. Now you know that. You can't give them that kind of credit. It wouldn't make sense, no people. Don't you understand that God had to be involved in that? It doesn't make practical sense that they could sail ships from Europe and come into our turf and to take 100 million of us into captivity. It doesn't make practical sense. Don't you understand? If that happened, and in fact it did, we would certainly have to say that God had to be involved in that. And if God was involved in it, why? Why did he send us into this captivity? Why did he send the slave masters against us? Why did he have us in West Africa waiting for them to transport us into slavery? What happened? Got to understand. History and destiny. Education, please. First word, please.
Education. To develop a mind.
If there are two forces, God and Satan, then there are two minds being developed. In every aspect of your lives, two perceptions. Education, to develop a mind. Two minds are being developed. One that will be obedient to God, or one that will be obedient to Satan. Two minds are being developed. Education, to develop a mind. Continue on, please.
Second meaning of education. To design a character.
To design a character. To design a character that will oppose God, or to design a character that will assist God and worship God. Two characters, two minds are being developed. And since we look and we've got to come to terms with the fact that we are getting farther and farther away from God, don't you understand the mind that you have? Don't you know that manifestation is the fruit of applied knowledge? Manifestation is the fruit of applied knowledge. Don't you see what direction you're going when you apply the knowledge of these institutions? It's not just happening. You are applying what you've been taught, and we see the fruit of it.
Rotten fruit.
Say it again. It's not working right. It's working, but it's not working right. Two, results. God wants a result, and the devil wants a result. The devil wants all the people to do what? Walk contrary to God. All the people to what? Be in opposition to God. And you see us getting farther and farther away from God. and you don't understand that, develop a mind, design a character, two kinds of institutions. And if you don't understand, you go into the institutions blindfolded. So then, another question for the audience. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, because sometimes I need your help. So now, if I gave an individual, my brother here, I know you didn't want me to call on you, you put your head down, but I kind of caught you. If I gave you, and again, I'm just using hypothetical examples, if I gave you the mind of the devil and told you, go forth and build, what would you build on this earth? Say it again. If I gave you the mind of the devil and I told him to go forth and build, he would build what? What else could he build? On earth. All that he could build would be a hell on this earth. Is there something else if he had the mind of the devil that he would? Say it again. You can say that in the absolute. So then, we will be able to determine what mind is being used by what they're building. Is that correct? Okay. So then, if I reverse that, and I gave you the mind of God on the end there, and I told you, go forth and build, what would you build on this earth? What else could you build but a heaven? So simply, if you want to live in paradise, if you want a heaven on this earth, I cannot transform your environment except that I transform your mind. Your mind has to yield the fruit. The mind that you have has to yield its fruit. The reason that you are in this hell on earth is because you do not have the mind of God. If you want to change this environment, if you want a paradise, all that you need is the mind of God. And then to go forth and build. Now, another question that always reminds me, I know when I was a child, all I knew about hell was, I always remembered it was a terrible place. But many of you out here, what do you envision hell to be like? I mean, just, if you're higher education, of course, I know that I ain't no such place, but it'd be hard to convince me. Because I just heard that, before I get to that and help you out, let me go back. But now, what do you envision hell to be like? Say it again. Pain and despair. Now hell, if nothing else, we knew that hell was what? A terrible place. Is that correct? That hell would be a terrible place. Then you said pain and despair. You said drive-by shooting, sickness, disease, drug abuse. You said all of these things. I'm writing them down. So murder, rape. Wait a minute. Perversion. All of these things you envision that those things would be in hell. Now when you go home, what I want you to do, get you out a piece of paper and start writing down the things that you would envision to be taking place in hell. And I guarantee you, you're going to start off swift, but by the time you get down to number 5, your hand going to be moving so slow. And when you get down to about number 8, you know what you're going to do? You're going to jump straight up out of your chair and you're going to say, I'm in hell. Now, tell me, if you don't believe it, first of all, you say heaven is where? Up in the sky. And you say hell is, of course they told me, down beneath the ground. So I simply posed the question. I said, now, heaven is up there and hell is down there. I said, where are we? I mean, since we're not in heaven, we're not in hell. I just said, where are we then here? So then I thought about it. I said, because now they promised that I would know hell, by the fruit. So then I listened and I was walking down the street And I heard a woman say to a man, "Oh, go to hell." You know, so, and then I walked a little bit further and I heard a brother tell a sister, "Oh, you are a hell of a woman." And I began to hear these things. And I walked a little bit further and I heard a sister tell her brother, you know, all you do all day is you just raising hell. And this is dawning on me now, I keep hearing, I said, now, where would you find hell of a men? Where would you find hell of a women? And where would people raise hell all day? And I began to think, I said, but now this couldn't be. And then I thought, and I went into the supermarket. I said, because no. And I was just walking through the supermarket and somebody pointed out and said, I saw one of them, she reached over there and got a can of deviled spam. I said, wait a minute now. I said, wait a minute now, this is going too far. Deviled spam. I said, certainly. I can't imagine them selling deviled spam anywhere but in hell. I said, but now, I didn't want to be, too hasty because by now, I'm looking up there and looking down there and I'm asking myself, I said, wait a minute now. Where am I, and I seen them, and they kept coming by and putting this into their baskets, and then I thought, I said, I don't want to insult anybody like that, but I know that they're just feeding that to the dogs. Then I had to ask them, I said, what do you do with that? I said, we eat it. I said, you what? You eat devil's spam? And I said, man, a hell of a man, a hell of a woman raised in hell. This began to make sense to me, And then I thought and I had it because I said, now somebody told me that we're in this season of Easter. I said, one thing that I know, this will convince me. I said, all of those other things, I'd say insignificant. But I said, I know one thing they don't do no more. Don't nobody eat deviled eggs. And somebody told me that people eat not only deviled spam, but deviled eggs. By that time, I didn't need no more convincing. And I realized then, usually, when I was a child, and under the wrong influence, and after I witnessed all of that, I would have said, man, I got to get the hell out of here. But then I'm a little wiser now. So I knew then that they had trained me that when I saw a predicament like that, I would say, I would start running and trying to get away. And I said, man, I got to get the hell out of here. I got to get the hell out of here. And I ended up and I got the hell out of there. And I said, man, I was tricked. I sat down and I saw the same things going on. So then I realized that I had to change my language. And I said that I got to find some heavenly women. And I got to find some heavenly men. Right. And I got to find people that raise heaven all day. Yes. All day long. Here we are. I want to find that supermarket where they don't sell deviled spam. And I want to find that family of God that does not prepare, because how you going to tell me that you feeding your family deviled eggs and this is